Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thursday, and all of today's guests, including John Shannon, standing by, brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Giants return to the LEC Friday, October 13th. Friday the 13th, when they face the Swift Current Broncos. Grab a 6 or 12 game flex pack starting as low as $129. Get all the details at vancouvergiants.com/tickets. Just a few days away from opening night of the National Hockey League season. We bring in John Shannon from, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, NHL Analyst. How are you, sir?
I'm great. And don't forget, Toigo's going to throw in free burgers.
Oh, yeah. Well, that goes without saying. Yeah.
White spot.
I better check with him before I say it the next time, though. So.
Yeah.
and some Kennebec fries. Okay, I just mentioned NHL. The regular season just around the corner. Season 106, if I'm not mistaken. How would you describe the state of the National Hockey League right now, John?
I think it's actually in very good shape. I mean, how many years, Donnie, since you and I have been in this business, we were always lamenting, there was 3 franchises on the verge of collapse or moving. The commissioner has tried to make sure that teams don't move around. Really, the only team that has any question about that at this point is Arizona. And yet, Alex Morello and his guys are trying 16 ways to Sunday to find a way to get a new arena there before they have to consider moving. And now we're starting to hear about, and I shudder to think about it because I don't support it, but we are starting to hear more and more about expansion, more interest from people around North America to have hockey teams in their cities. And I don't think it's going to dissipate. And I think that's an indication. I think that's an indication of how solid the business of hockey is in North America at this point.
Yeah, Salt Lake, Houston, Atlanta, Quebec City, expansion. Let's expand on expansion. John, what exactly are you hearing?
Well, I haven't heard it from a league source. I haven't heard it from the commissioner. I mean, he's been very patient and understanding with everybody asks the questions. But there's lots of rumblings. What Gary has always done over the years is taken calls. He takes calls all the time and talks to people all the time about who's interested in teams. And what I can tell you is, the Atlanta situation, as much as we will all shake our heads, the Atlanta situation is serious. We know how serious Quebec is. The owner of the Utah Jazz, Ty Smith, is interested in having a team there. So there's 3 automatic. And then you put the largest city in North America without an NHL team is Houston. And the guy that owns the basketball, their team there, he's always been interested in having a hockey team. I'm not sure he wants to play the asking price because now the rumors are the asking price are far more than what Vegas paid, far more than what Seattle paid. And we're now talking into the billions of dollars rather than the hundreds of millions.
John, something Bettman said yesterday was really liked here in Vancouver. The salary cap's going to go up by $3 to $4 million next year. The flat cap's killed the Canucks the last few years in so many ways. But how nice to know finally a significant bump for the first time in a long time for the salary cap.
Well, and really it's an automatic trigger. It's not as if Gary's saying that the business is booming and we're going to have that revenue. There is a 5% clicker that goes into place in a scenario that if there's escrow all paid off. That giant escrow bill that the players had to pay, part of their salaries had to pay during and after the pandemic, will be paid off by the end of the season. We know that, and therefore 5% added on, if both sides agree, the players' union and the league agree that they'll go to 5%, then there's a good chance that will happen, yes.
John, the Western Hockey League suspended Wenatchee coach Kevin Constantine for a derogatory comment he made. I don't get it. Like, he didn't even coach a game. Like, he was hired in the summer when they moved from Winnipeg to Wenatchee, and he didn't even get to coach a game in the regular season. I don't get it. These guys know that, there's hotlines you can call. There's more awareness, all this stuff, and they're still making these comments and getting suspended.
Wow, a coach that gets signed and doesn't get the training camp for the
sounds
regular
familiar.
season. I've never heard of that before. um, um, you know what? You're right, Rick. We all have to be better. We all have to be more patient with everyone. I do think that the Kevin Constantines and the Mike Babcocks of the world are outliers now. I think most coaches, if not 99% of coaches, are good, solid citizens, have learned how to motivate young people. Because let's face it, as much as us old codgers are in and around the game, this is a young people's sport. This is for 19, 20, 21-year-old players. And I'm amazed at it. I really am amazed that they haven't found a way to learn how to communicate without the old ways. It's sad. Mm-hmm. It's sad. Mm-hmm. You'd love to be able to look Kevin in the eye or Mike in the eye and say, guys, this is 2023. Look around you. The world has changed. Enjoy the world for what it is and try to find a way to motivate players in ways that they understand, not in ways that you're the only one that understands.
Well said, John. Rick Tocchet here in Vancouver is going to go with something, I don't know if you heard this, John, but something called defense by committee, no set pairings. You're laughing here. Have you heard of anything like that, and do you think it's a good idea?
Oh, it's a good idea if it works.
Yeah, no.
Well, we know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that probably speaks to the scenario that the hockey club has with people beyond Quinn Hughes. Defense by committee tells you that, all the guys that have been signed, all the guys that were still here haven't really fit the bill for what Rick Tocchet wants for particularly those top two pairs. There are some talented kids on this team. There are some talented defensemen that will get opportunities, and veteran players as well. I think Ian Cole, as the season wears on, will become a valuable player on the blue line. I think Carson Soucy will be a valuable player on this team. But I think it's Rick trying to find a way to motivate his guys and also try to figure out, maybe we have to change a few things as the season progresses, because not everybody's going to be able to play up at Quinn Hughes' level, and we have to find a way to make sure that others can contribute without really creating a true weakness on this hockey club. We all saw that last year. You guys better than I did. Mm-hmm. How many times there was a weakness on defense. They're trying to patch that situation up by rotating guys, I suspect.
If defense by committee comes with winning by committee, I think everybody will be okay with it.
And the other thing is, and Rick is great. Rick was great at it as a player. I think when you have defense by committee, there's a lot more responsibility for those 12 forwards to be back and playing part of the game back there too. Yeah. And I think that's probably a bigger message, maybe for the defensemen and for the forwards, that hey, if we're going to stop the puck from being behind Thatcher Demko, you better contribute in your own zone. The Edmonton Oilers are going through it too. Mm-hmm. The Edmonton Oilers are going to put a lot more pressure on their forwards to contribute, and I suspect Rick Tocchet's going to do that with his defense by committee situation.
Okay, Mr. Broadcasting, October 24th, ESPN introducing something called Frozen Frenzy. It's a version of the NFL's Red Zone, 16 games going on, staggered starts. They're going to show every goal, every power play, kind of like the Red Zone does when teams get inside or at the 20-yard line and in. Just a good idea, John?
I think anything that exposes the game in different ways is a good idea. I think that there's a creativity. I'll tell you what, it's hard to do in hockey. It is hard to do in hockey. It's like doing a golf tournament. When you have 16 golf balls in play, which one do you cover first? I commend them for trying to do something differently. Yeah. But it's going to be a challenge. Remember, again, this goes back to the age thing. I talk a lot about age these days. Maybe it's just because I'm old. But, kids 20 years old don't watch games for 3 straight hours. You have to incentivize them. You have to basically keep things moving, keep the pace going, And if you can put 16 games into a 3.5 hour window, that might be the way to go.
Yeah, I think it comes out of the category of worth a shot. Hey, John, I believe you tweeted about this, but Canada lost a hero on October 1st, and this gentleman doesn't get enough attention. And we're talking about the late, great George Reed, Saskatchewan Roughriders legend. He passed away one day short of his 84th birthday. What are your memories of number 34 in your Lucky Number program, George Reed?
Well, thank you for asking, because I usually don't get asked about CFL questions very often. But the ultimate compliment for me as a football fan in our country was I hated George Reed. Mm-hmm. I hated George Reed with a passion, like every Lion fan hated George Reed with a passion. George Reed was unbelievably good. George Reed was powerful with the football. There was no way George Reed wasn't going to get that extra yard. There's no way that George Reed wasn't going to be in the end zone, goal to goal at the one. George Reed had power, he had speed, he had intensity. He was a great team player, a great character guy. I still remember sitting in my seats at Empire Stadium. He and that damn Ron Lancaster would just throw fits at us all night long and win a game because George Reed, who played the worst words, Donnie, in the history of the CFL would be, by the way, George Reed's day-to-day, he's hurt. Because you knew then he was going to be better than ever when he played hurt. He was an amazing football player. And I got to know George after, in my time living in Calgary. George was working for Molson Breweries at the time as one of their big executives. George was just a wonderful person. Yeah. You know, he had those beady eyes that when he would stare right through you. You knew he was competitive, whether it was on the golf course or playing tiddlywinks or playing football for the Riders. He was an amazing man.
Yeah. There's a reason the Saskatchewan Roughriders are extremely popular in Saskatchewan, and it has a lot to do with the two gentlemen you mentioned, George Reed and Ron.
And I hated them both.
Yeah,
I hated them both.
But grew to love them. John, thanks so much for this. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, boys.
Yes, same to you.
Right back at you.